Once again, we are discussing the scriptures in light of archaeology. And again, I'll reiterate it just in case it wasn't made manifest in the other videos that I've been producing. I really don't view archaeology as the very best way to interpret and study and understand the scriptures. But our critics have to come up with something against the scriptures and against the LDS concepts of the Book of Mormon. So they proclaim that there's absolutely no archaeological evidence to the Book of Mormon whatsoever. And I think it's a misunderstanding of the nature and use of archaeology, as well as a misunderstanding of what genuinely is in the works right now. And I do believe it's based on a fundamental ignorance of the Book of Mormon and the Bible, because they continue to proclaim, well, the Bible's been proven true. What's taking you Mormons so long? What's taking us Mormons so long is because we're using the proper understandings of archaeology, unlike some of our critics. And so I want to address yet again what I consider to be more Book of Mormon evidences via archaeology. Not that I think this is the best way to establish the truth of the scriptures. It is simply not the best way, but it is an interesting way. It is helpful in some respects. It's also a two-edged sword. If you live by archaeology, be prepared to die by the sword of archaeology, because it's not the final science of teaching us about antiquity, even though it is helpful.
There we go. I just ran across these deer. Oh, aren't they beautiful creatures? There's a bunch of beautiful deer. Looks like they're all does. Oh, how fun. That's pure bonus. That is pure bonus. I love being out in my backyard and sharing videos with you on the Book of Mormon and the scriptures and being able to see the fabulous creation. There we go. Look at me, sweetie. Yeah, look right back at me. Isn't she beautiful? Wow. It's the first time I've seen deer up in this area. How fun. Give you hunters a thrill, won't it? I don't like to hunt. I'd rather video them and leave them alive. Although I will hunt if I have to eat. That's not a problem.
Now, the reason for concentrating on archaeology is simply because of the claims of so many critics who contend that there is no archaeological evidence for the Book of Mormon whatsoever. That argument is simply false. I've said that several times in several videos, and I'm going to continue saying it, and I'm going to continue presenting evidence to the contrary. Critics are claiming this claim either in absolute ignorance or with deception. And they're trying desperately to come up with some sort of a method that Joseph Smith came up with names in the Book of Mormon. Now, I don't mean just any names. There are dozens of names in the Book of Mormon that, quite frankly, in reading the Book of Mormon, these names are positively weird. They really are goofy in some respects based on our modern standards. We can't fathom anybody naming their kids some of these names. He couldn't have got them from the Bible because they're not in the Bible. But now they have been found in genuine archaeological excavations They're on bulla and seals, wax seals, that the king would inscribe with his ring and then seal the piece of wax or put it on bulla. We have lots of bulla and seals that have been discovered over the course of the last 50 years. On these bulla, even on an old arrowhead, there are actual names that match the non-biblical Book of Mormon names. This has been discussed in the Journal of Book of Mormon Studies, Volume 9, Number 1 for the year 2000, by Matt Roper, John Gee, and John Twetness, in their article, The Book of Mormon Names Attested in Ancient Hebrew Inscriptions. Now, it's also interesting that there are no Chinese names, there are no Japanese names, there are no Australian Aborigine names in the Book of Mormon. These extra-biblical names keep turning up in one area, the ancient Near East, in the archaeological excavations that are occurring in the ancient Near East. And they are ancient Near Eastern names now. Now, this does not prove that each one of the individuals mentioned in the Book of Mormon actually existed. That is not what the archaeology is proving. What the archaeology is proving, that these extra biblical names found in the Book of Mormon were real people. People really did use this type of a name for other people. And they lived real lives. The critics contend, for instance, on page 45 of this article, they are arguing, they say, the critics of the Book of Mormon have long suggested that Joseph Smith, or someone in his day, Solomon Spaulding, or Sidney Rigdon, or whoever, they wrote the Book of Mormon names and they invented all of the non-biblical names. That's been the argument. I mean, if it's not in the Bible, it's not real. It really didn't happen. Well, archaeology has completely destroyed that naivete without question. We know the Bible is not the only record ever kept in antiquity in the ancient Near East. Simply because it's the canon now, that was a political process. We know there are hundreds of thousands of more writings that even have yet to be discovered. The Dead Sea Scrolls are proof of that. The Nag Hammadi, the Ugaritic texts, the Mari letters, the Lachish letters, the Bar Kokhba documents. There's just myriads of writings all over the place. Ebla. It just goes on and on and on. We know all of the ancient peoples kept records, not just the ancient Jews in the Old Testament. They say, the critics, that these non-biblical names was because Joseph Smith was a schizophrenic, that he had an overactive imagination, that one pair of critics said that he sought to study his prophet, P-R-O-F-I-T, and he mistook his calling in life rather than anything in the way of support toward the claims of the Book of Mormon. A pair of critics said it would be easy to make up hundreds of new names by simply changing a few letters on names here or there and make up different combinations, and whee, we're off to the races. We can invent anything to make it sound antique. Is that what Joseph Smith did? Well, some critics say yes. But here's what archaeology itself checks the critics' method. Because not just any odd old combination of names have been discovered, but the actual non-biblical names in the Book of Mormon, many dozens of those have been discovered directly in archaeological contexts. Let me show you a picture of some rings and some bulla and some inscribed Hebrew seals from the Israelitish period, and you'll see what I'm talking about. You'll actually see what these things are. It's a very interesting concept here. When they talk about seals and bulla, this is what they're talking about. Little pieces of stone. There's rings with little ridges on them, and they stamp those rings in the piece of wax to seal a letter. There's stones with carvings on them. They have their markings, much like a